Hello and welcome to Türkiye Talks. This week we are going to focus on the US elections because of the charges against former President Donald Trump, who is also one of the most important names in US politics. Kadir, welcome.
Bora, how are you?
Thank you. I'm sure you've been watching all these allegations, court drama, and etc. After the first hearing, as far as I understand, Donald Trump denied all the allegations. So there is the, dimension of criminal case, but also people like us, international observers, are more interested in the results or consequences of this legal action against Donald Trump and its impact on the US politics. What do you think all about this?
Well, this is of course a first, but this is a political figure that's that's made the headlines many times for being the first in so many things. No U.S. president has ever been indicted, has ever been arrested, and has ever, faced the legal system in this way. So in that sense, it's a first. And he appeared in court yesterday. His arraignment was yesterday. He was technically arrested, very briefly, of course, and then released by the court pending trial, basically pending his defense, and then the prosecutor will give rebuttals, etc. So there's a whole basically legal process, but this was a first, and so there are two different opinions. This will help him, or this will basically disrupt his potential to become a president. There are good arguments on both sides. The argument that, says that Trump will benefit from this court case because he can play the victim and he can mobilize his supporters. They have a point, and we're already seeing that. There's been an increase in donations to his campaign, more than $7 million in a matter of 3-4 days, I think. Thousands of new volunteers, a lot of, mobilization of his own base. And then Republicans, even his opponents, had to support him. Publicly, they said, this was a political trial against him, political case against him. And this might get him become the next nominee, Republican nominee for the presidential elections. But there are polls that are showing that, some 60% of the country think that the indictment was justified. Independents, especially, who are the critical mass here in the presidential elections, good majority, strong majority of them also think that, he deserves to be taken to the court and this case is somehow justified. So once he gets the nomination, if he ever does, right, DeSantis, Florida governor, is his major potential rival. There is Nikki Haley. There is, Mike Pence. These are potential contenders. This court case might help him get the nomination. But there are other investigations by the Justice Department, by, some in New York. There are other cases in Georgia. There is a case about him interfering with election results in 2020 elections. So there's at least 4 or 5 investigations that are serious that could potentially turn into indictments. So if that happens, right, alongside this indictment, there are other indictments, it will be hard for him to be nominated or, get a lot of support from the broader, even if he's nominated, to increase his votes from the general public, it's going to be difficult, because the image of a former president who is basically facing an avalanche of cases, and then potentially in New York, he could, if the case is successful, he could be labeled a felon, which is, which is a serious thing. It wouldn't bar him technically, legally, nothing. None of this will bar him from running for office, winning, and even running the country. Theoretically, he can even run the country from jail. Because the only institution that could take away his right to run for elections is Congress. And Congress in the past refused to do that. And the Constitution allows, Constitution doesn't, say that you have to have a clean record. So in that sense, for the moment, it's helping him with his base and with his potential nomination within the party. But I'm not sure. I think this has already, in my opinion, it has damaged his image, the strong image that he wants to convey. Nobody can touch him kind of image. That's already been damaged. So in politics, of course, never say never. But right now, it's helping him to some extent. But in the medium and long run, I'm not sure if it's going to propel him to the presidency,
Yeah, don't you think that this case helped him to come under the spotlight again? Because after he lost the elections, after his Twitter account was suspended, he became kind of invisible. He couldn't find a place in the mainstream media. His statements were not aired in the mainstream. So he went to his own social media networks. So with things, as you said, it's very difficult for him to handle. But in a way, I felt like, he in a way used this to, make people remember him. So he was at the center for a couple of days, although not a positive way. But it brought him again the spotlight. I think this can also be not a tactic, but this can work for him in a way.
It is working for him. I mean, as I said, it is working for him. For like you said, to get the attention, the national spotlight has been on him. The media coverage was crazy, basically. Like all the details of his arrival at the court was discussed, and which door he's gonna enter, and all this legal analysts on mainstream media. It was again all about Trump, and like you said, this brought him back to the national agenda. He has been using Truth Social, his own, Twitter in some ways. He's been sending messages. He has a following there, but it's really mostly his base that subscribes to that platform. But again, bad publicity may not be such a bad thing, because you are getting coverage and you are under the spotlight, and your messages could be conveyed. But you see, what happened is that he didn't get a chance to, make a speech to the mainstream media. He was there in the court. He just said a couple words, not guilty. And even that wasn't televised. It wasn't, there were just some pictures and just live shots of him entering the courtroom. And people were noticing that actually the cops, the courts marshals, I guess, or cops there at the courthouse, they didn't even hold the door for him. So he had to open the door himself. So these anecdotes, but the point is, right, he didn't get that kind of national platform where he can make a speech and have everybody have to listen to him. He did do a speech back in Florida, but the crowds in New York were very small, and not any mainstream, let's say, Republican political figure showed up. It was more people on the fringes in many ways. You know, couple of elected officials showed up, but as I said, they're already like in the Trump team. So in that sense, I'm not sure how much sympathy it was able to get from the wider population. The case is an interesting case. We don't need to go into the details, but basically, it's not the maximum sentence he can get is 4 years. But the image of being convicted as a felon, that's the part that matters. He's not going to go to jail with this, obviously, because it's a first. I mean, I shouldn't say that, but I'm not a legal, there could be some jail time, but it's usually postponed, even for civilians, for something's, for such a small amount of time. Anyway, long story short, I agree with you. It really put the spotlight on him, but he didn't get to convey his message in a positive way. This was, somebody who was being arraigned, who was being arrested, who was being released, who has to come back to court in the summer, and then there's a whole legal process. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag in that sense.
Yeah, Trump's case from the beginning is very interesting to me. I mean, not only the legal case, but his whole political career from the start, especially when he started to run for the presidency for the 2016 elections. As a journalist, I find it very interesting because it tells us about U.S. media world. From the things that you have mentioned, I get the impression that there is a policy against Trump, how he should be portrayed in mainstream, how much his statements should be broadcasted or not. As you said, only a couple of photos, maybe no statement. So it gives me, as a journalist, that there is a policy, and U.S. mainstream is also under some kind of control.
Well,
That's very interesting to me.
Well, so in the 2016 elections, it became a big deal, right? Mainstream media, talk shows, comedy shows, they hosted him, they gave him a platform, and he's an expert in using media for his own purposes. He's been around in media circles for a long time. So he understands the power of the media, and his presidency in many ways is a proof of that. So, but the mainstream media over the years, especially after the January 6th events, during his presidency too, he was, of course, dominating the news every day, tweets. I don't remember a single day that was quiet in America during his presidency. But especially after January 6th, when there was an attack on Congress, there was an attempt, according to some at least, of, not some, according to most people, overthrowing of the American, election system or American government. And so those scenes really pushed, social media platforms, mainstream media channels, etc., to rethink and debate harshly, really heavily, whether to give him any platform, or how much platform do you really have to give him, right? So yes, this actually debate just came up because of this arrest as well. Some people criticize the mainstream media, liberal media, for giving so much attention to it, right? They were like, he doesn't deserve it. It's just an arraignment. Why are you, dwelling on this so much? But this was news. This is major news, right? For the first time, U.S. president is being. So I'm not, I don't want to be harsh on media too much on this, but everybody, I think my observation is that everybody had to look at their limits, how far they should go, and how much they should allow, Trump to dominate the news. And, but at the end of the day, it's also a money-making business. American giants in terms of TV channels like, Fox and CNN, etc. For them, it's unavoidable because, they need to make money. He drives the most attention. He can, even on Twitter, right? He was taken off the platform after that. Twitter's engagement rates have gone down a lot. So you may be right. I mean, I don't know if it is coordinated or to what extent it's coordinated, but it's definitely a debate, strong debate about how much platform to give President Trump, now candidate Trump. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge for American politics. And I think for the future of the country, we are seeing the polarization. We are really seeing the continuation of political polarization in this issue as well. And it won't go away, Bora, I think.
Yeah, well, some people outside of the US, maybe also in the US, think that these charges against Trump is kind of intervention to U.S. politics by the lawmakers, but there are allegations. So somehow he has to counter all these allegations probably, and not only in the U.S. I think in the world too. Not many people would like to see Trump back in the helm of the United States administration, especially those in Europe, because I remember he was criticizing European governments for not paying enough to their defense. So he was talking about why US is carrying the heavy bill of protecting European nations, so they have to contribute more. And he was criticizing NATO. And I remember he was very harsh on Merkel. At that times, she was the chancellor of the German government. Having said that, NATO is in transition again. Enlargement is going on. There was an important case. Finland and Sweden were expecting to join NATO, and Turkey was not blocking but putting some demands on from these two countries. Finally, last week we have seen that Finland finally joined and Turkey said okay, but Sweden is still waiting. So there are two questions here. On the one hand, do you think Finland's joining to NATO will change power balances, or what kind of reaction should we expect from Russia? This is one question. Second, maybe we can discuss if Sweden will be accepted soon if they don't meet the needs of Turkey, especially countering terrorism.
Yeah, Bora, you pointed out several important things. U.S. attitude towards NATO has drastically changed since Trump. Trump really questioned the alliance. It actually kind of jolted the alliance to rethink right? What to do and how to defend and how to increase the capacity of Europeans who have been kind of for a long time used to U.S. providing the strategic kind of direction. So Biden is trying to do that right now, but I don't think it's in the best way, to be honest, because particularly because of the relations with Türkiye, there are, ongoing debates, ongoing issues between the two countries. Let's not get into that. But in terms of Finland, it is a major event, right? Because for a long time, I mean, a lot of people who opposed NATO expansion, they were saying, Ukraine's joining NATO, they were saying, we would be basically bordering Russia. They opposed Ukraine's membership based on that. But Finland has a huge border with Russia. In a matter of days, basically NATO borders with Russia doubled in size. So it is a significant development. And Russia, I don't think they will. I mean, they've put threats on the table. They've put nuclear threats on the table already. They are talking about tactical nuclear weapons being. They're gonna rethink their defenses, but I don't think they will do anything drastic soon against Finland, especially. But they have to rethink their defenses for sure. It strengthens the alliance, I think, the NATO alliance. That's why Turkey has not been opposed to expansion of NATO, and if anything, it's supported in the past, like Georgia and Ukraine's bids to become NATO members. Turkey's main issue is with the failure of NATO countries, especially some of them, to create a common front against terrorism, especially PKK terrorism in Syria and in Iraq. Especially in Syria, some NATO members are directly supporting the YPG and PKK. This is a major concern, and Turkey asked Finland and Sweden to ensure there's no PKK, activities in their countries. They shouldn't be roaming freely. And Finland was able to satisfy Turkey, and Sweden might be able to in the summer, because they are planning to, I think, change their legislation in the summer. They have some legal process that they want to abide by. They changed the constitution. They need to wait a year to pass some anti-terror legislation. So it might happen in the summer. I don't think Turkey is ideologically opposed to it. It's just they want serious assurances. And you know this much better than me, Bora. I mean, Stockholm, and we've seen so many incidents and events, protests, quote-unquote protests against Turkey, but it was basically coordinated through the PKK activities in Europe. So if both countries join NATO, NATO is going to become a 32-country alliance, but right now it's 31. And the fact that you need the agreement for everyone within NATO for major for these decisions, it's a show of strength against Russia. Some analysts will say that that's a provocation against Russia, and Russia will probably use it in that way as well. They will say this is a provocation, and they might use it to justify some of their future actions, including maybe expanding the war in Ukraine. I don't think it will happen very soon, but that would be that has been in the cards for a while, and they will make that argument. But at the end of the day, Turkey is also a NATO country, and I think NATO thinking now in much more broadly and much more deeply about its security, that's a plus at the end of the day. Because Turkey has been calling on them to pay attention to, like, the Middle East, right? Libya, Syria, the refugee inflows. They only, mostly Europeans, they only cared about it once it really threatened their peace at home, stability at home. But now they realize that they really can't just sit idly by and wait for the next crisis. They need to be much more proactive. I hope it turns into a broader sense of purpose and sense of unity within the NATO alliance. But the some of the countries that are constantly giving Ukraine all these arms and help to fight Russia, they also have to think about what to do with Ukraine's NATO bid, because they want to join NATO and they're at war right now. So it's a tough challenge. I don't want to make this too long. And today I've talked too much, Bora. I need to get you to talk a bit.
No, well, I mean, on this Finland issue, I think also this also showed that Turkey, when this issue started to be discussed in Europe, some circles started to portray Turkey as uncompromising country, rigid, pro-Russian. So Turkey is blocking NATO decision making, etc. I think with this separating Sweden and Finland and saying yes to Finland's bid for NATO, I think Turkey has also proved that, acting rationally, Turkey has concerns. If her needs are met, Turkey is very compromising country, looking for cooperation, and Turkey still a part of Western security system, trying to protect its ties with other NATO countries. So I think from this point of view, Turkey has proved its willingness to stay in this organization and has its own security concerns. So Turkey is not acting on behalf of this or that country, in this case Russia. Just Turkey is after its security concerns, and I think fighting against terror, especially PKK, it's an organization which is active since maybe 40 years, killed thousands of civilians here and there in the major cities of Turkey. I remember as a Beşiktaş fan in December, after, you remember that incident after a football game, they killed tens of people. So lots of things like that. So I think when it comes to Turkey's concerns on terror activities and European attitudes, ignoring Turkey's needs, is still an issue. And I think Sweden will have to be more active in fighting against terror if they want to join NATO. This is the message that is given to all the NATO members, I believe.
That's true. I wanted to point that out as well. Turkey's opposition or reservations about their candidacies, it wasn't an ideological thing, nor was it for Russia. And Russia actually hasn't said anything publicly against Turkey on this. They've been careful. Of course, they want to probably protect whatever relationship they have with Turkey. But Turkey showed, it can maintain some parts of the relationship with Russia for its national interest, but it will also stick to its guns about, some of the things that they need to do, especially Sweden. But again, this shows it's not impossible for Sweden to get in. It's just Sweden has to do certain things, and they can do it in the summer. But the future, right? The future of NATO, the Ukraine war is a serious thing, and I think the West has less patience than Russia, and they have gone for a major break with Russia. I think they need to think much harder about what to do with the war in Ukraine. If it's a long, some people already have war fatigue, and if, like we were discussing at the beginning earlier, if there's a Republican administration in Washington next time around, how is that going to play out on this front? So there's a lot of questions there, but I think internal unity of the alliance is very important, and there they need to work better with Turkey, I think.
Well, thank you, Kadir, for the comments. Turkey is heading to elections. There are still things that should be clarified. I think next week we will see more information about Turkey's elections. The lists will be determined, and many questions will be answered. I hope we can discuss next time on Turkey's elections more. And for this week, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bora. See you next week.
See you.